Today's show is sponsored by City Theater. If you are a birthday person and you love making that whole week, maybe month, maybe season all about celebrating your big day, then the play Birthday Candles might be perfect for you. City Theater is presenting Birthday Candles by Noah Heidel and directed by Mark Masterson, and you can catch the show on the South Side from March 8th through the 30th. Join Ernestine as she takes us through a century of birthdays. The play is inquisitive, it's hilarious, it's heartwarming, and it asks big questions about our place in the universe and what we might do for the perfect gift. You can find out more and buy your tickets at citytheatercompany.org.
Today on CityCast Pittsburgh, our school district, Pittsburgh Public Schools, is facing a lot of big questions. Does it need to close schools? And if so, how many? Is federal funding about to disappear? And what does it take to build a district where every student has the same opportunities to thrive? Host Megan Harris is sitting down with PPS Superintendent Dr. Wayne Walters to talk it all through. It's Tuesday, February 25th. I'm Mallory Falk, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about.
Dr. Wayne Walters, welcome to CityCast.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you for having us in your office here in Oakland. I know you've been with the district for a long time, more than 30 years. You became superintendent, of course, in 2022. What do you think the biggest challenge is that the district's facing right now?
I don't think it's one thing. I think it's many things, and that's the beauty and the charm of education in this time. It's just education is not one-dimensional. It's multidimensional. You know, we're still recovering from the pandemic. We have financial challenges. We have student outcomes challenges. We have equity challenges. And we have really this idea of trying to build a Pittsburgh Public Schools experience for all of our students, where they have the same level of access and opportunities to a high-quality education. Because at this juncture, our city's too small to not only think of some, but we have to think of all.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's been such a dramatic year for the district. You brought in consultants, of course, to study the district, come up with recommendations for kind of overhauling some pieces of it. Why did you feel like that was a necessary step to take?
I think it's necessary because I am the leader of the school district. However, I wanted to get a national perspective from experts who have been doing this work across the country. I don't think that we're so unique around our challenges in urban spaces as across our country. We're seeing the same themes, the same ideas, the same challenges. And so we wanted someone with expertise who can give us sort of a national perspective on what's happening across the country to inform our decision making. Also, at the same time, allowing us space and time to give them some level of orientation around Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh is unique. And so I felt like an outside consultant can bring that national expertise and give it to us in a way through consulting with our community, hearing their voices, hearing the vision, and really putting something together in quality recommendations to really impact our reality here in Pittsburgh.
Well, and some of those recommendations, of course, included closing more than a dozen schools, consolidating a bunch more. They had a pretty aggressive timeline to starting at the end of this school year. I know the district held off on making changes that quickly. Was that your call? Was that the board's? I'm curious where that stands right now.
So the board did give me the task initially of, creating this plan and allowing me time and space to create consultants. But we also had a timeline. If we were thinking of implementation, there are a lot of things in the sequence, whether it's legal or preparing or valuing communication to our stakeholders.
Oh, it's huge. It's cascading decisions.
Absolutely. And so once we got off that timeline, that was what informed the decision to keep status quo for the next year.
Was it all the public meetings and things like that? Is that part of what influenced that?
Sure. And we were being responsive to communities saying, hey, we want more, we want more, we want more. What I still believe is the themes that emerged from whether it was a short timeline or a longer timeline would have been the same.
Yeah.
The same challenges exist, and we would have heard the same themes in voices.
Yeah, I mean, my sense is that closures and consolidations are coming. It's just a matter of, when it's going to happen, which schools. Is there anything you feel like you can do to help minimize some of that disruption, from kind of here on high?
Yeah, I believe change is always challenging. And so the more that you can plan for change and anticipate change and communicate change in chunks that are digestible, I think it supports those who may be completely disgusted with the entire process.
I mean, nobody likes a closure. Everybody's always upset about a closure, a consolidation. It like kind of touches, I feel like, that piece of identity you're talking about, right? Like, I identify with my school and I don't want that to change. Even, especially kids, like they like to complain about their school, but it's still mine.
Yeah, and it's an interesting dynamic around the voices of students and the voices of adults. I hear more attachment to the actual buildings from adults. The students are telling me more of, well, my friend goes to this school and this is the experience they have. Why can't we have this?
Yeah.
So that's their voice. And the ones who are in those spaces where they would view as more opportunities and more access, they're the ones who are saying, that's not right. That's not right that I get this experience and my next door neighbor doesn't, because, we have different options where people can go to school.
Kids have such an acute sense of justice.
They are more invested in justice, I believe, than adults are at this juncture.
Oh, I think that's always been true.
And they're very attuned to the reality. And as a leader that elevates student voice, they completely feel free in sharing their unfiltered Pittsburgh River water view on life and hopes and dreams for them as young people.
Is that true for you as well? Can you walk into a room and ask a question and get the blunt answer?
The students will do it with me.
Yeah.
I don't know about adults. I think adults may package themselves differently, but my students, they will share truth. They will share truth because I think they believe that I'm truly listening. And so I've acted on their truth. And I think they feel free and in a liberated space to share truth. And that's what I want for our students. They're our core customers and their truth matters to me.
I admire anyone who can take unfiltered feedback from a group of kids. That's not a small thing.
But you know what? In honesty, when I'm having those days of challenges with adults, I just leave and go into a school. That's where my sanity comes back.
Yeah. I mean, where does that stand right now, at least in terms of, the closures, the consolidations, the timeline, all of that?
Sure. Great question. So, as you know, we started this process with the board charging me to create some sort of plan. And so we shared that plan. A part of that plan was to look at a consultant. The board agreed. We got the consultants in with that tight timeline, as you shared. But they did come back with core recommendations. The board's response after that was to say, okay, now we see these core recommendations. Dr. Walters and your team, is this feasible? Now, feasibility for a lot of people means every answer possible, all the core questions. For me, feasibility means, can it be done? But there's work to do after if you make the decision for it to be done. And so that critical work cannot happen without the board making a decision. It would be very hard on the human capital that we have in our buildings right now and in our schools and in our central office staff to say, stop what you're doing and answer every question right now, not knowing that this is a direction the board even wishes to do. Now, we're in a space where we have not closed schools or addressed our financial challenges in 13 years. That was the last time that we looked at our footprint, and we've lost over a quarter of our population since then.
Yeah.
So, my mother always tells me, Wayne, when you see writing on the wall, you better stop and read it. Well, I've read the writing. It's very obvious. It's clear. It may have some graffiti design to it, but it's beautifully illustrated of some factual statements about our core reality financially. And also our students have shared that vision for themselves around their experience in Pittsburgh Public Schools and why it is not equitable. Why don't I have the same access and opportunities? And as a pretty small district compared to, other districts in the country, we have to be a district of excellence and not one with pockets. The pockets will not sustain the complete garment. It just will not. And in Pittsburgh, our students deserve this, but more importantly, we're too small not to insist upon this.
It's funny, I'm getting chills a little bit because I think the last time I was sitting in this room was about 13 years ago with Dr. Linda Lane having a very similar conversation. I mean, what is that like for you to, kind of step back and take that in? Because it's a tremendous amount of change in a short amount of time in a city that's also having, trouble maintaining its population right around that 300,000 level. The enrollment numbers are going down, but I mean, I guess from your perspective, is it a problem that, enrollment is down? Like sometimes you step back and you're like, okay, well, we have fewer children, but we still have children. We have children to educate. What is that signal for you that enrollment has dropped a bit?
So I think my leadership has always been reality based, but laced with empathy. So I understand that everything has a challenge to it, but within that challenge, there are opportunities. So that's my approach. My approach is that, yes, we see that population is declining, but what are the opportunities to make our district so attractive for those maybe who have left or have moved out? Now, we know there are external issues and challenges like affordable housing. Right now in Pittsburgh, it's expensive to live in Pittsburgh. We've had, things from regentrification or just changes in the city dynamic where Pittsburgh may look attractive to those and affordable housing is critical. Well, when you close housing communities and those are some of the folks that you serve, they move. They move to places where are more affordable and they leave the city. And so a part of this is, some will say, well, what about charter schools and private schools? Well, we're outperforming our charter schools. Some may have a vision about that, but we're outperforming our charter schools. And so maybe that's on us to do more marketing and communication around that reality. But there are a lot of people who have left Pittsburgh due to external challenges that are beyond their reach, like affordable housing. And so that's why the work of Pittsburgh has to be unified, not just as a school district, but with our city, our communities, on really looking at Pittsburgh Public Schools as one of the gems in the crown of Pittsburgh.
Do you feel like that message is one that's shared across the stakeholders here in the city right now? Like, are people doing that marketing work for you? Because it can't just happen from your office.
I would say not always, but I would say that everyone has their own perspective and their own angle that they're trying to sell. So, it's who does the best sales job in the sales pitch. And that has to start here for us because this is our challenge, but this is our opportunity as well. We want people on board. We've always been open to wanting people on board, and that's why we engage with our stakeholders and our communities to get their voices. But I will not do so without the voices of my students.
I mean, what do they say? Like, what is their sales pitch? What do they love most about the district?
Well, they love the opportunities that it presents for them.
Now, give me some hard examples. Like, I mean, is it their science class? Is it like the playground at one of the elementary? Like, what do they love?
So schools are social places. So we're not going to act like schools are not social spaces. They're social spaces where they want opportunities to do a variety of things. I mean, no one wants to be a one-hit wonder. And everyone in this generation looks for a next career. I mean, it's not like my idea of when I went back to school, if my teacher was no longer there, they'd better been promoted, retired, or passed away. Mm-hmm. There was never this idea that, well, they went on to another career. Well, this generation, that's not normalized. So they want a piece of everything so that they can find their passion, or I would pluralize that word, their passions, so that when they're done with one part, they can move on to the next and feel comfortable because I had a little bit of this, I had a little bit of that, I had a little bit of this, and I interacted in this way. And they really kind of focus in on capturing their strengths and showing that off in multiple ways.
That's so funny. I hadn't thought about like the kids having internalized, I don't know, like us as adults, like having like, side hustles and like other passions or passion projects. And the kids are like really soaking that in, I guess.
Oh, they completely are entrepreneurial in their approach. I've had students educate me about, and this may sound funny to you, but I was well educated about the art of eyelashes.
No, I love it. That's a really good job right now, actually.
Yes, and I had no idea. I thought it was just, you went to Five Below and got a pair and just glued them
Dr.
on.
Walters.
And so the one shared with me, she's an official esthetician. She showed me her business card. She said, I'm on the market, ask around, they know me. And she said, it takes about 2 hours. It's eyelash at a time. She said, I will do a demo for you, on you. I said, no, thank you, but I would come and observe. And she was very serious and passionate about it. I know there's students who do catering. I know there's students who are like social media gurus, who
Are
are
you
like
talking about
influencers.
current students or former
Current
students?
students.
Whoa, like teenagers at least?
Current, yes, teenagers that are very entrepreneurial and they believe in, they don't call it a side hustle, they call it, I'm being entrepreneurial.
No, I love it. Kids are going to rule the world.
They already do quietly, just that we haven't accepted it.
Today's show is sponsored by the Frick Pittsburgh Museum and Gardens and their newest, still upcoming exhibition. Mark your calendars for artist Kara Walker and her Harper's Pictorial History of the Civil War annotated. If you don't know Walker's work yet, this is a perfect time to acquaint yourself. Her contemporary artworks are on display all over the United States, literally San Francisco to New York, and soon right here in our own backyard. She has won a MacArthur Genius Grant. The Washington Post even called her this generation's Andy Warhol. She really brings the hype. Now, I have only seen pictures of this exhibition, so I'm going to be just like most of y'all, checking this out for the very first time. But we should look forward to big, big artworks. Walker's bringing 15 large-scale prints where she uses these striking black silhouettes over old Harper's Weekly engravings to depict the racist and violent reality that often gets glossed over in traditional historic narratives. Walker uses silhouettes in so much of her work. She says they really say a lot with very little information, just like a stereotype. The exhibition, Kara Walker, Harper's Pictorial History of the Civil War Annotated, opens soon at the Frick on March 1st. Get tickets and learn more at thefrickpittsburgh.org.
Ready to conquer your next big challenge? Make 2025 your medal year by signing up for the Dick's Sporting Goods Pittsburgh Marathon weekend of events. Happening May 3rd and 4th in Pittsburgh, it's more than a marathon. Choose from a marathon, relay, 5K, and more. And if you prefer walking, join the popular half-marathon walking division. The Pittsburgh Marathon isn't just about running. It's about community, celebration, and pushing yourself to new limits. Over 300,000 fans will be cheering you on through the streets of the Steel City. And the hardest step is the first one, signing up. A registration today is a commitment to your future self. Join the excitement by visiting thepittsburghmarathon.com. Use CityCast15 to save 15% off any event registration. That's thepittsburghmarathon.com. And again, use that code, CityCast15, for 15% off any event.
So let's move on to the district's finances. As you alluded to, there's been a lot of challenges here in the district, very reflective of the city itself. A couple of years ago, an analysis projected that the district could be in the hole $20 million a couple years from now. Is that still the outlook from where you're sitting right now?
It's still the outlook. There's still the outlook. There are debates, of course, around the earned income tax credit. The time when we bailed the city out and the city has not bailed us back out or given us what was, not bailed us back out, but given us back what was ours. And we understand the city challenges, and that's, a conversation for another day. But we do have financial challenges. Things are getting more expensive. I know we're always talked about the cost that we invest in educating our children, but children come with significant challenges in this day and age. We have a significant special education population that deserves a high quality education, and we have to meet that demand. We have students that are not starting school at the same spaces, so we have a lot of catching up to do. And although we loved the space where we got ESSER support during the pandemic, and we were supposed to build core sustainability, there's still a need. There's still a need to support students and their outcomes and experiences in ways that we've not met. The mental health dynamic, we can't find enough therapists, internally or externally, to support the mental health needs of our students and our staff, and supporting our families. That's a dynamic that we predicted, but not to this extent. And just the needs are just different now. We have technology now where we have to invest a lot in making sure that students understand that technology is now an extension of their arm, and allowing teachers space to learn and play catch up with a student group that is better versed on this than adults are.
Yeah, I mean, we actually got a reader submission from Annie S., who was asking, like, it's challenging as a parent sometimes because we try to enforce limits around screen time and things like that. But also, we understand that it is necessary for them to learn these tools. What is that like for you as an administrator to try to balance that? Because it is tough, like trying to like thread the needle and like help them learn and not fall behind, but also having a computer as an extension of a third grader's arm is really tough.
So for me, I just think about my own experience now of my challenges of how I function with or without technology. I may not be the social media guru. I may not be this person that lives on that, but I do go home on the weekends and decompress as a Netflix junkie. And so I understand screen time and this idea of like just one more episode, and next thing I know, it's 3:30 in the morning. So there are limits and boundaries and developmental spaces that we have to consider. And so I fault no parents for cutting off the Wi-Fi or give me your phone right now. However, on the other side, we realize that that is their world. That is the mind that we're competing against. Their world is very visual, it's very engaging, it's very entertaining. And if school can't build themselves up to that space around the way that we engage our students and the way that we introduce content with them that is very relevant and connected, they remember during the pandemic that we were simply a channel that you can turn off.
Yeah.
And what they're doing right now is, if you're not bringing that level of engagement, that level of connection and relevance and relationship dynamic, they may quietly just turn you off as a channel.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
mean, but it is also expensive to be able to provide that level of training, the constant maintenance that these things
absolutely.
require, kind of, in that realm too. I know Pittsburgh Public has also filed some lawsuits recently. Those are still going through the court system. I think the most recent was just a few days ago, also against the State Department of Education related to funding. How do you explain some of these moves to folks that maybe aren't following, the nuance of it day to day, but just in terms of like why this matters, why this is important, and why these are steps that your team has to take?
Well, some may say education is a civil right.
Do you say that?
I don't say it often, but I do believe it's a civil right because I think a part of our foundation is that we would have an educated citizenry, and that is entitled. That's the whole focus of public education. That is an entitlement. And our jobs is to make it the best education so that when students leave these 13 years or even 15, if you start with early childhood, that you leave with the confidence and competence for whatever your hopes and dreams are, and that you can contribute back to that. And so the educational system, taxes is a part of how we are funded, and a tax base. And so we don't have a tax base, then we're challenged. And I know some may say, well, I don't have children in the district, so why is it my issue? And I would say, but when you enter that nursing home, you want a well-educated child taking care of you. So the investment is still something that I think you should think about, even for not necessarily for yourself, but for your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and just their contribution to making this world a better place is rooted in the philosophy of being well-educated. Regardless of whatever you think, the majority of our population is educated through the public school system, and it has to be well-funded. It has to be well-funded to deliver the hope of this country.
So what is it like for you then to look at the news and see that federal policy is changing so quickly, that, there's talk of dissolving the Federal Department of Education, and which of course is tied to the things that you've talked about, special education funding, Title I, and low-income schools, and how we take care of each other. Can you even prepare for that? Like, well, how are you kind of internalizing that and making decisions around it?
So it's interesting you would ask that. And we had a principals meeting, and I said, the spaces that we're in right now, I go to Charles Dickens and I think of A Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times, It was the age of wisdom and it was the age of foolishness. And I just think about those opening lines of, depending on which side of the coin and which perspective you bring to the table, those beliefs are true. And at this point, we are so saturated with change that it's hard to manage and keep up on it. I can't keep up on it. So I use our legal department to really sort of process, give guidance, and really sort out the realities of so many things that are happening that not only impact education directly, but impact the students we serve, impact the families we serve, impact the communities that we serve. And so it's just a lot right now.
I mean,
And
even if
yeah,
your legal team were coming to you with a debrief, twice a day, every day, I can imagine it still wouldn't be enough to keep you abreast of how quickly things are changing right now.
no. And so we try to make sure first and foremost that our students are safe, because safety is a core belief of our district and that they're well taken care of. And so, yes, it does pain us when we hear that there may be, losses in food that we give to students every day, because in some spaces that may be their only meals on that day. And so that is troubling. But we're still sorting things out because we're hearing a lot, but the enactment of it as policy, we have not gotten those details. So we stay patient, we stay grounded, but we also try to think about what that would be like and how we can strategize around supporting our students and families. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's authentically a lot. And we also know that, we're in a space where country's divided. So there's some that are enjoying this and there's some that really hate this. And that's the reality. And that's across the board. That's with our families. That's even within our staff. We're not all of one mind about this, but what the one mind that I promote to our staff is that we have to take care of our children. We have to take care of our students, and we have to put them first. Through all the chaos, we have to be the adults that rise above and create some balance and sanity and feelings of safety so that they can have that experience and not be ingrained in the adult chaos that's currently happening.
I can imagine how for, much of the student body that it's a laudable goal for sure. But, say for some of our English language learners that are coming from immigrant backgrounds, I don't know that you can protect them in that way. And I don't think you can protect many of their friends as well. What is the district's policy right now around, ICE activity potentially coming into schools? Because, we've talked about that on this show quite a lot. Schools used to be safe spaces. You could not come in. Federal agents weren't allowed to come in and confiscate children. They can now.
Yeah, so what our first moves were just to make sure that the staff and those adults who will interface potentially with anyone entering the school first were trained on the law and what to do if that happened. So we wanted to make sure that we leveled the playing field with information. So everyone from our school bus drivers, our security, our front office staff, our administration, our counselors, social workers, got that training to make sure.
Is that literally like a know your rights training and,
Yes,
know
and
these children's rights?
understand exactly, and understand in the case that is to happen, or if that would happen, this is what you would do.
So what do they do?
So the first thing they do is they authorize them, and then if they insist on it, we call our legal department. So they know to stop them at the door. Do you have any legal documentation? Let's see it. Wait here. And so that's the guidance that we've given. We have not made a big public display of it because we want to maintain that level of sanity for our students, but just know that we're prepared. Knock on wood, we've not had any of those issues. However, I do worry about, okay, so fine, maybe not in school, but what is that family experience think? What are they thinking at home? Will they even want to send their child to school? What does that feel like? So we have policy that protects our students in school. But of course, our students.
But there's only so much you can do.
And our students don't live in schools. They come to school, but they leave, they go home, and they have that experience, those fears, those dynamics. But we try to maintain calm for our students. We limit the every 5 seconds a public statement of support because our policies speak to our support. What we do and how we care for our children speak to our support. And to be honest, that just can't be the leadership stance of me waiting to write a statement and make a public statement about everything that may be coming down the pike. It's just not a good use of leadership versus being strategic and planning for what we can do to protect our students, to make sure they're well educated and to keep them safe.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of end where we started. I want to talk about a report that the advocacy group A+ Schools put out at the end of last year. They gave the district some flowers. More kids are coming to class more often, really making strides in that chronic absenteeism column. But the district, of course, still has some challenges around, as you said, the opportunities you have depending on where you live and what school you get sent to. What is the district trying to do to make things as racially and economically equitable as they can?
So that's always been the theme. It's always been about equity, excellence, and efficiency. Years ago, we began disaggregating data by different subgroup populations, racially, gender, socioeconomic status. So it's not that you can say, oh, let's ignore it and just talk about the whole. And we've also been strategic about asking questions of why. Why is it that if we're educating everyone in a similar manner, why does it work for one group of students and not the other? And you have to wonder that.
That is the $1 billion question.
I think if I had the sole answer, I would probably not be in education. I would be somewhere else just dropping nuggets of, how to I would be the nugget dropper of this is the magic bullet.
But this piece about equity, how are you approaching that and, kind of your long-term plans for the district?
That's a lot of what this facilities utilization plan work is that we recognize that we have a system of haves and have-nots. We have a system now that has spaces where people view as preferred and ideal, and we have spaces where people view as not.
And you also have an equity program too, which is, I would imagine might fall under this, federal ban on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion
Absolutely.
programs.
Absolutely. And it may. However, we still serve children. We still serve children, and
can you just rename it and not come under fire?
Well, that would be me sharing strategy publicly,
Fair
which is not a good look for me right now.
Last I looked, Trump has given schools 2 weeks to end all DEI programs or risk losing federal funding. It's just one more thing that you now have to think about and plan around. It's all just a lot.
Duly noted, duly received, and duly accepted. Yes, it is a lot. It is a lot, but I still have to do my due diligence to make sure kids are well educated.
How much of your budget is federal?
About $56.7 million.
Percentage-wise?
A little bit under, I don't know the calculations right now. I know what that is. I know what our full budget is.
It makes me a little nervous that you had that big number right on the top of your head.
Of course, I do my homework. So students, do your homework.
But it's a substantive amount then.
Absolutely. And the majority of that federal funding supports early childhood programs, special education students, and just general education for high need students. So if that's the majority of where that money comes from, of course it's an impact that we have to think about. How do we navigate keeping those resources?
Can Pittsburgh Public absorb that, even a fraction of that, if funding does stop?
My answer as of today is no. It's no. And so it's something that some may view as idle threats. It's something I have to think about deeply, because anytime there's a loss in resources, it's felt. Anytime there's a change to normalcy, it's felt. And so how do you, we're sitting here thinking and planning about, the rainy day, but it's still going to be felt. When you're accustomed to certain services and you want to even improve on those services for what you're seeing the needs of the students in front of you are, yeah, it's a pain point.
Well, we'll give you an opportunity to cheerlead a little bit here at the end. Is there anything happening in the district that you are just really excited about? Not a pain point. You are not worried. You are just happy.
Oh my goodness. There's such a list of them. Our career and technical education programs, stellar. We just had championships, so I always love to go and see the students be competitive. Our early childhood programs, really flagship programming that's happening. I saw some students yesterday perform. A school that didn't have a music program, but now they're building one. That's my joy, because I think the arts are integral to student experiences, not because I'm an artist, because I know what it did for me. I think about when we look at our outcomes and the growth that we're making and people being so dedicated in times of challenge, whether it's graduation, whether it's third grade reading or math or biology, and the excitement, but just the passionate people. I get excited about people that come to work every day to serve children. It is the most noble profession. You don't go into education to become independently wealthy, but I get excited about those individuals and I honor, value, and respect them greatly. And I always, every opportunity I get to let them know that because they are game changers in the lives of children. And so those are the things that get me excited. I have a wonderful leadership team that offers multiple perspectives and feel that they can do so without, fear. And just, tell me the honest truth so that we can collectively, create a better life and a better structure and a better education system for our children. So those are the things that excite me. And more importantly, when I go to schools and see children and see the joy in their face that they experience, it is the counter narrative that I love to get injected with because so many people speak so negatively about our future. And when I go and I meet them and I see them and I talk to them, I feel we're in a good space.
The kids are all right.
The kids are all right.
Dr. Walters, thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's been my pleasure.
That's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. If you liked today's show, please consider telling a friend about us, leaving us a review, and giving us 5 stars. And don't forget to check out our Hey Pittsburgh newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Talk to you then.
Our superintendent taught us when we were, I think, 4th or 5th grade, how to tie ties, like
Oh,
regular
really?
ones and bow ties. I can still tie
I
a
did it
bow
for my
tie.
students when I was at Obama as a principal. They all had to, because I told them clip-ons are illegal. And so my Obama kids, they knew like, oh yeah, clip-ons are illegal. We got to get a real bow tie. And I would pass them out.